What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you guys how to build out this beautiful user interface that I found on dribble.com, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this with vanilla HTML and CSS, so you don't have to worry about using React. Okay, if you are using React, then you can also follow along. It's very similar. Okay, like just because you're using React doesn't mean that you're not going to be using your basic HTML and CSS skills. And we're also only focusing on design, so we're not going to be worrying about functionality. So I'm only going to show you guys how to just style everything, structure everything, and etc. And I already have a simple project set up. As you can see, it's the bare minimum. I am going to be using two SVG icons that I had. Seems like I can't preview it here, but I'm using two SVG icons that I had downloaded from flaticon.com. I'm going to leave links in the description to those icons. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and one more thing, I'm also going to be using Slack theme. Okay, that's the theme because I know a lot of people always ask me what my theme is, and I'm also going to be using an extension called Live Server. If you want, just click on the extensions tab and just install Live Server. What it does is every single time you make a change to your file, it'll auto update without needing to refresh. So for example, if I go ahead and type in h1 hello, and if I save, if you go back here, it'll say hello. Very simple. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to start off with the navigation bar. So as you can see right over here, we have a simple navigation bar that is the same color as the background of the entire website or the UI. Okay, now this navigation bar has three main components that I like to call it. You have the icon, you have the nav links, and you also have the hamburger menu. So usually when I look at this, the first thing that comes to mind is using a flexbox, and then using, I think, space between, or actually space evenly, and then that'll allow us to get it the way we want it in here. So that's what I'll do. So let's start off with a nav, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fire SVG, the vector. So I'm going to use an image tag, and the source will just be fire.svg. Now if I save, you'll notice that we have the fire SVG icon. Now I'm going to change the size of it, and for now I'm just going to do that right over here with the width attribute, just for now. We'll probably change it later. Okay, there we go. That's a perfect size. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and work on the links. So we're going to have an unordered list, and we're going to have just 4 links. Keep it consistent. Okay, and now last, we're going to have the hamburger menu. Now typically I would use something like Font Awesome, but just because I don't want to install way too many libraries, I'm just going to use a vector icon, which I think it'll be okay. So we'll do menu.svg, and then the width will be 50 pixels. Okay, there we go. It looks kind of ugly in my opinion. I might need to change the width of it. I'm not really a fan of the color though, and you see how there's this there's that little white space over there, which might be a problem, but it doesn't really matter too much because you guys understand what we're really doing. Okay, so don't worry so much about if it's like not exactly like it. The whole point you should really take away from this video is understanding how to really go about structuring these things. You can worry about the little, the little things later. Okay, so now you can see that right now the problem is we have all of our elements. They're on different lines. We want them on the same line, and we also want to fix the link. Okay, the links. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna create an index.css file, and I'm gonna go ahead and link my CSS. I think that should be fine. So just to make sure everything is good, let me go ahead and set the background color to black. Okay, good, everything works. All right, so I think the exact color of this is going to be this hex value, but like I said, you can use any color you want. Okay, we're not going to use the exact colors. That's why I have a red flame and kind of like an orange, kind of to complement this little flame right over here for the hamburger menu. Okay, so now let's go ahead and target the nav. Let me just put this side by side. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm going to go ahead and set the display of the nav bar to flex. So now you can see that they're all on the same line. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and target this unordered list, but I'm actually going to give it an ID. I'll just call it nav, or I just call it links, or nav links. So I can directly reference it like that, and I can go ahead and set the list style type to none, and I'll get rid of, it should get rid of the bullets, or I think I may have used nav links, sorry. There we go. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and set the display to inline. I think actually we might need to set it for the actual links itself. So nav links li. There we go, perfect. Okay. Now let me go ahead and just set the color of these to white so we can actually see it. And you can see that again, this hamburger menu, the little spacing on the bottom is what is screwing it up. So you know what I'm going to do instead of using the hamburger menu, because I didn't really expect it to be that way. I'm just going to use the same icon, the fire icon, just for the sake of it being consistent, because I don't really like the hamburger menu. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set the font size to, let's say, 18 pixels. I think 18 should be okay. 20 maybe. Okay, 20 is fine. The font is not that great, so I'm gonna go ahead and find one from Google. Okay, so I just went on fonts.google.com, and I'm gonna go ahead and just import this font right over here. So this is Open Sans, very basic, and I'm just gonna go ahead and set the font family to Open Sans. And it doesn't look that great, but it definitely looks way better. It definitely looks way better before. We can work with this for now. Okay, so now I want to worry about putting spacing between all of these. Now you can see that for some reason there is this spacing right over here. I'm not sure why. I think it might be because there's a margin of 0, or there might be some padding that I'm not too. There we go. It was padding. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and inside the nav, because this is where we have the display set to flex. We're going to set justify content, and I think the best thing to do would be space evenly. That doesn't give us the exact way we want it. Use space between. Okay, space between is what we want. Perfect. And now to space these links, we're going to go ahead and give it a padding of 20 pixels. Okay, looks pretty good. I'll probably give it a little bit more, 25. Awesome, and I want a little bit spacing over here. So I think what I'll do is in the nav, I'll probably give some spacing. Yes, but I only want padding. I don't want too much padding. What I'll do is I'll probably do 25 pixels from the top. And then from the left and right, we'll do 45 pixels. And I think that should be okay. Perfect. All right, so next thing we're going to do is whenever the user hovers over these links, we're going to put a cursor, and we're also going to change the color as well. So to do that, we're going to use a pseudo class. We want to do that on the nav links list item. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do hover, and we're going to change the color, and I want to change it to probably a red color. Maybe I'll do a lighter red, maybe like a red and orangish color. There we go. We're also going to set the cursor to a pointer, and I'm going to add a transition. So to do that, I'm going to go inside the actual list item itself. We're going to set the transition to, let's do 500 milliseconds, ease in. There we go. It's a little bit slow. I'll probably do 200 milliseconds. There we go, that's better. Okay, awesome. All right, now let's work on the next part. So let's work on the buttons right over here. Okay, so we'll set the div, and what we'll do is we'll create a, let's see, so this div is going to actually be the main div. I'll call it the main. Actually, I'll just call it main. This is going to be the parent of every single thing. So for example, in this UI, you're going to see everything is going to be inside that main div. These buttons, and these things over here. So let's go ahead and create another div. And I'll give this a ID. I'll call this, I'll just call it buttons. Buttons section. And I'm going to create two divs. They're going to be identical size, different colors though. And inside this div, I'm going to go ahead and first, well, let me do this. Let me do a class, and I'll do base button, because we want to define the actual dimensions of these buttons first. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go inside the CSS file, set base button, and we'll set the width to, let's do 300 pixels. Height, I think we can do 100 pixels. I think that should be okay. And you can see it's not visible right now because we don't have any color. And what I'll do next is I'll give it another class, and I'll give this the let's see, annually button, and this will be the monthly button. And we'll go over here, annually button, and we'll give it a background color of, I think, let's just do white for now. Okay, there you go. You can see it's visible now, and I think the size could be a little bit bigger. Let's try maybe 400, maybe. 400's okay. I think maybe the height can also be a little bit smaller too. Awesome. Okay, now obviously these colors are pretty bad. I'm gonna go ahead and try to pick some better colors. So for this button, I'll probably do an orange one. And for the other one, we wanted a color that was like gray, because that color itself, so if you look right over here, this color over here represents it not being selected. So the way it's supposed to work is when you actually click on it, the color of this will change. But we're not going to worry about that because, again, that would be for JavaScript. And we're not using any JavaScript at all. But I'll set the color to a more dimmer color though. Don't worry. So let's do monthly button now. And I'll just take the same background color, but I'll dim it just a little bit. So you can see maybe right over here. Okay, not the best color. I'll probably change the opacity too. Maybe I can change the opacity just a little bit. Alright. Okay, so right over here in buttons section, we're going to go ahead and work with this now. So I want to make sure that these buttons are on the same line. So I'm actually just going to use a flexbox, because flexbox is very, very simple. Now, you can see that right now, they're actually not going on the same... Oh, that's because this should be a div. I mean, an ID. There we go. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and justify the content, so I'll center it. There we go. And then I think I'm going to try to give it some padding. I might need to actually give these buttons padding, actually. Or no, margin. I always forget sometimes, but that's the beauty of working with CSS, is that you can't remember everything. You kind of just have to like guess and check. But okay, let's give it not too much padding. I think 5 pixels should be okay. Yeah, that's perfect. We'll give it some margin though. So right over here, we'll do probably like 50 pixels, maybe a little bit more. I'll probably do 150. I think 150 should be fair. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to go ahead and round the corners over here. So we're going to use border radius. And I'll do maybe 50 pixels. No, that's way too much. Maybe let's try 10. I think 10 should be okay. Awesome. All right, cool. Let's work on the actual content. So we're going to go ahead and have an H1 bill. I'll call it annual instead. Okay, and the font is ugly, but don't worry. bill annually, and then save 20% altogether. Now this looks a little bit weird. That's because, okay, so we actually have padding, I think, inside our button. Or no, we have margin. But I think we actually need to do box sizing, border box. Okay, so you can see that it's actually overlapping over here, which is not good. So I think what we need to do instead is we need to actually remove the H1, what's it called, the margin, because H1 by default has a margin. So I'm going to set the margin to 0. Perfect. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and just set the, let me see if I can set the font family globally. Open sans, so I don't have to change it over and over again. All right, again, not the best font, but we'll work on it later. Don't worry too much about that. Okay, awesome. Now I'm not sure if this has a margin. Let me try to see if I can remove that as well. Yeah, it does. Okay, I think I can just do this instead. Perfect. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go into the base button now. And what I want to do is I think I actually just want to set this to a flexbox. And I want to set the direction that it flexes. So right now it's flexing in by default row. We want to flex it by column. And this is why flexboxes are very powerful, because it's very easy to build responsive user interface with them. I'm going to set the content to justify in the center. But I also want it to be directly in the center, just like that. Okay, perfect. I'm also going to change, I'm actually going to change from P tag, paragraph, we're going to use a small tag instead. Just to make it a little bit smaller. And again, I'm not a fan of the font, but again, you can ignore it. Don't worry so much about that. Okay, cool. I think this is good. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and just change the color real quick to white. Or actually, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can pick a darker orange color. There we go. All right, cool. Now we're going to do the same with the second button. You can see that it looks very similar. We'll change the font color as well. Do a white, but we won't do white. We'll do like a dimmer version of white, just so it kind of like fades in, so it has the same effect. Okay, cool. We'll change it to build monthly. And there you go. Okay, again, doesn't look exactly the same, but you can kind of get the gist. Like if you change up maybe like the padding of the button just a little bit, so let's add some padding, right? Or let's give it like maybe 5 pixels. If you give it some padding, you change up the font, maybe find a way better font than Open Sans. I think it will look a lot better in my opinion. But you guys just have to kind of like, you know, play around with, you know, the fonts that you select. Obviously, you're not going to get it perfect the first time. So just, you know, try different things out. I'm actually going to go ahead and import another file. I know I'm kind of like, I don't want to get too off topic, but I'm going to go ahead and import Poppins. And I want to see if that really changes anything. You know what? It actually does look a lot better with Poppins. It actually looks a lot better. I like it. That was a good choice. I should have picked that earlier. Okay, let's not get too off topic. We're going to go ahead and work on these parts now. So the basic, pro, business, and platinum. So this is going to be the fun part. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and right underneath the buttons, so we're outside of the buttons, so we're done with the buttons. We're gonna work on the actual pricing cards. We need 3 of them. So we're gonna create a main div for it that's gonna hold it. I usually call these containers, but I'm gonna call this pricing card container. Okay, it's gonna be an ID. Okay, and inside we're gonna have 3 cards, and you can imagine we're gonna set the display to flex because we want them to be on the same line. And I'm gonna set the justify content to center. so that way it'll be centered. Now we're going to create 3 divs. Normally people use sections. I typically switch between the two, but it doesn't really matter too much. But you should use more of the semantic HTML elements, HTML5 elements. Alright, so we're going to do the same thing that we did with the buttons. Because we have 3 cards, we're going to create a base card class. Because we don't want to repeat ourselves and give the same styles to, you know, these same elements over and over again. So we're going to create a base card. And for these cards, we're going to set the width to, I'll probably do 325 pixels for now. The height will be about, I'll probably do, let's do 700 pixels. And we also will have a border radius, and we'll do maybe 20 pixels. And I'll set a padding of 20 pixels. We'll change it accordingly. Okay, now let me go ahead and just give a quick background color. And if you notice, the background color in these cards over here are actually a little bit darker. Or, you know, I think they might be the same color. There's just a box shadow around. I'm not too sure. But what I'll do is, instead of giving a background color, I'll give a box shadow. And let me see if I can get it to kind of like glow out, so it's kind of obvious that there's something there. Just to see. Okay, so, okay, you can definitely see it right over here. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're giving a box shadow. The first 2, these are the X and Y offsets. I just want the box shadow to stay where it is. The next value right over here is the blur. And then the next one is the spread, so how far you want it to spread. For the spread, I think I'll do just 1. And for the blur, I'll probably do maybe like 10. It actually looks really thick because all of it is right next to each other, but we'll fix that. So I'll actually go right over, I think maybe I need to do that. Let's see. I think I may need to give padding right over here. Or maybe margin, sorry. Okay, there we go. And it's way too tall, so I'll change it to 500 pixels. Okay, 500 pixels. And it doesn't look that bad, to be honest. It doesn't look that bad. We're going to give the pricing card container, remember this is the thing that holds all the cards. We're going to give it a margin top. We'll do 100. Or actually, you know what I'll do? Let me go back to the buttons. Let me do 100. And actually, you know what? I'll do 80. Okay. Okay, so let's work on these cards. So we need a title. We need a title. We need like a subtitle. And we need an icon. And we need bullet points. Pricing. Seems like there's like a little black line over there. And we need a button. So this is going to be the fun part. Alright, so I went ahead and I actually downloaded a couple of more vectors. I actually downloaded a different hamburger menu vector, so it looks a lot better. And I downloaded a checkmark vector because in the design there were check marks right next to the list. Hopefully it looks well. I was thinking about just getting font awesome, but that would be way too much work, so I think it'd just be better if I just use a vector icon. Hopefully it won't look too bad. Okay, so and for the icon that you see right over here, these icons, I'm just gonna use the same fire, the flame icon, just so I don't have to like keep downloading more and more icons. Okay, but just letting you know, flat icon is free. You just need to attribute, basically give credit. Okay, but let's go ahead and work on the cards. So let's go ahead and first let's start off with the fire icon. So we'll do that. Okay, doesn't look that bad actually. Alright, so now what we need is we need a simple section. And I could just use a div here. I'm actually just going to use a section tag. It works the same way as a div. Okay. And inside the section, we're going to have an h1. And I'm going to call this basic. You can see right over here. And we're going to have a small tag. I'll have to actually see what this looks like. And we'll just call this start. Okay, it doesn't look that bad. Okay, so what we want is we want these two. So this basically this part is going to be the header. We want the icon as well as the text to be aligned with each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another section. Again, you can use divs if you want, but I'm just going to use section just to be a little, change it up a little bit. And I'm going to call this class the card header. Okay. And we're going to go over here and we're going to set the display, you guessed it, to a flexbox. Perfect. And I think we don't really need to worry so much about setting the justify content. But what I want to do is I want to set the padding just a little bit, or maybe not the padding necessarily, but I want padding right over here on this section. So maybe what I'll do is I'll probably do a header text, or I'll just call this a header title, and I'll do header title, and I'll probably do a padding left of 25 pixels. I think that's a little bit too much, but we also need to give some padding in the header as well. So let me do this. Let me first go ahead and give padding here first. Perfect. And let me go ahead and then give padding from the left side. Maybe like 10 pixels will be fine, or 15. Actually, I think 20 is good enough. And what we'll do is we'll set the H1 tag. The color will be white. The font size will be 24 pixels. I might actually change this to, I don't like the font weight. Can I probably just change it? Okay, that's fine. And we'll give it a font size of 32. And let's go ahead and work on the small tag over here. And the color will be gray with a font size of, let's do 18 pixels. That's a little bit too big. Let's do 16. Okay, now let's work on the list segment now. So we have our header. Good. Now let's create another section. Let's create another section. And we'll give this card content. Okay, now we're going to need an unordered list. And we'll just have about maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 different elements. So basic, well, depends what we're offering, right? Let's just do something like, free analytics, 24/7 customer support, rich dashboard. Maybe we're offering some kind of hosting service, unlimited containers. All right. And what I want to do is I want to put an icon next to all of these. So it's going to be a little bit tricky. Let me try something. Okay, that's not too bad, though it's a little bit weird. We could probably set this, it would be weird setting a list item to be a display flex, but it will work though. I'm confident it will work. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, that's fine. Okay. If anything, I could probably change the size of the icon maybe just a little bit to maybe 20 pixels. Just make it as small as we possibly can. Okay, let's go over here. And I'm honestly not going to give it an ID, so I'm just going to reference it like this. Card content UL, list style, none. Okay, and we're going to go and set the unordered list item. We're going to set the display to be flex. There you go. That will close the little gap. Alright, the next thing I want to do is I actually want to give some padding, because you can see that they're way too close to each other. So I think the best thing to do is, let me actually zoom out a little bit, if I may. And I'm actually going to go ahead and give all these a span tag in hopes that I could actually wrap these all in like an actual element. Okay. And I want to give some padding, but it's not letting me do that with these things. It's a little bit annoying. You know what I'll do? Let me target the list elements span. Padding left 10 pixels. There we go. It looks a lot better now. But there's this large padding over here. We have to get rid of that. I think again that's coming from the actual unordered list. Yep. If we look at the card header or the base card as a 25 pic. Yep, perfect. I'm gonna actually, for padding from the top, I'll do 0. Left and right, I'll do 25. And we will give color of white. Perfect. There we go. Now it actually looks really cool. All right, now let's go ahead and add the price. So what I'm going to do is first, let me actually create a section. And I'm going to go ahead and just create a section for the text. So I'll do, you know, $25 a month. Okay. Now I'll create another section, and this will be the button. So let me go ahead and give this class price, or I'll call it footer actually. Call this price. Footer, and then footer dot price, color white. We will go ahead and give it a font size of 40 pixels. Actually, that's way too big. Maybe 38. I know with the actual MO, I think the month should actually be smaller, but I know this video is getting way too long, so I don't want to like drag it on further. But hopefully you guys don't mind. Okay, so what I just did over here was I actually don't think I need the margin, but what I did was I set the price section to flexbox, give it a font size of 32, justify content center and align center. So it doesn't look perfect, but it looks, you know, somewhat okay, I guess. So I mean, I could just probably get rid of that. Maybe put like an H3. Yeah, it doesn't look that great. But I think this will be fine, to be honest with you. Okay, and let's go ahead and create the button. So this part will be purchase button. And what we'll do is we'll give this a width of, let's do 250 pixels, height 75 pixels. Background color. Alright, I'm gonna go with this color. This is a like a, I don't know, it's like a pinkish orange color. I'm gonna try to speed up a little bit because I don't want to waste too much time. Okay, cool. And we'll go in here. We'll do a let's do, I don't want to do an H1 purchase. Okay, awesome. Font size, we'll do 18 pixels. Actually, we'll do 22. All right, and I'm gonna set the display to flex, justify content center, align item center. Is there like a shortcut that I can just do align self center? No. Okay, cool. All right, and the color of the text will be white. Okay, it might be a little bit too bright, but I think that'll be okay. All right, and what I'll do is for the button, we want to make sure it's centered. So in the footer, we're gonna have a display of flex direction column, justify content center. Huh, interesting. There we go. Perfect. So justify content center line items. Though actually I don't think I needed the it was probably just the align items part that I needed. Okay, cool. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Well, not get rid of it, but I'm going to get rid of these cards. And all right, I want to make sure there. And of course, we can just change up, you know, the names and stuff, the text, and there you go. You have yourself a nice little user interface. Okay, it's not functional, like I said, but the whole point was to focus on UI. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you guys liked it. And if you guys like more of these, you know, videos where I code designs, leave a comment down below and let me know. Leave a like and share this video as well. It really helps with the channel. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Peace.